Change doesn't start when you finally feel ready. It begins the moment you decide you're done staying the same. That's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to hear. We think change is something that waits for us. That it's patient, that it'll come knocking when the timing is perfect, when the money's right, when the fear goes away. But the truth is, change doesn't wait, it demands, it confronts, it whispers in moments of silence and screams in moments of regret. I've seen people wait their whole lives for change, and I've seen others grab it mid-fall, clinging to it like a rope in a storm, with nothing certain underneath their feet except one decision. I can't keep living like this. We all want transformation, but very few of us are willing to go through the part that actually transforms us. We say we want to grow, but we resist being uncomfortable. We say we want clarity, but avoid hard conversations. We want peace, but won't leave the chaos. We want purpose, but won't let go of what's familiar, even when it's killing us slowly. So what do? We delay, we justify, we pretend this version of us is fine. We shrink ourselves into a version the world accepts, even if it suffocates our own soul. And yet, somewhere inside there's a small voice. It's quiet, but persistent. It says this isn't it. It says you're capable of more, it says, don't forget who you are. Have you heard that voice lately? Because here's the truth, change isn't something you wait for, it's something you become, but becoming takes courage, not the kind you post about, the kind you sit with at 2 a.m., when your chest is heavy and no one's watching. You see, change isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about revealing what's real, what's true, what's been buried underneath all the roles, all the pressure, all the pretending. That's why change hurts. It peels back everything that isn't you, not to destroy you, but to free you. Think about a seed. It cracks open before anything grows, it breaks, it splits, its entire shell shatters, because that's what's required for the roots to take hold. People don't change because it's easy. They change because staying the same is finally more painful. I remember a conversation I once had with someone who looked like they had it all together. Big job, respected name, smiling for photos they didn't want to be in. But over coffee, they admitted something most people never will. I feel like I've built a life I don't even like. That hit me, not because it was shocking, but because it was familiar. Too many people build lives based on expectation, not intention. On survival, not alignment. And they only realize it once the applause fades and they're left alone with themselves. So how do you create change? You start by getting radically honest with yourself. Not productive. Not positive, honest. What isn't working? What's draining you? What lies have you been living because the truth felt too risky? This is the uncomfortable inventory most people avoid. But without it, there is no roadmap forward. Because you can't get to better without first facing what's not okay. And once you know, you can't unknow. That's when the real work begins. See, change isn't about doing more. It's often about doing less of what doesn't align. Less pretending, less performing, less chasing things that don't fulfill you. Change asks you to look in the mirror and stop blaming time, money, parents, bosses, or bad luck. It asks you to take ownership, not of what's happened to you, but of what you choose to do next. And that's hard because ownership is scary. It strips away excuses. It forces you to stop waiting for someone else to rescue you. But it's also where the power lies. When you realize you don't need permission to evolve, you stop asking for it. You stop making your growth dependent on who understands you, supports you, or believes in you. And here's something else. Not everyone will clap when you change, because your growth might disrupt their comfort. Your honesty might highlight their denial. Your peace might challenge their chaos. Your boundaries might offend their control. But that's not your job to fix, because real change isn't about pleasing people. It's about living in integrity. You don't change to be liked. You change to be whole, and being whole means shedding what no longer fits, even if it once felt like home. That's the hard part no one tells you about. Growth often feels like loss. You lose versions of yourself, relationships, roles. You lose comfort, familiarity, sometimes even certainty. But you gain something far more valuable: alignment, that quiet inner knowing that says, I'm becoming who I was meant to be. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt proud? Not because of how you looked to others, but because of how honest you were with yourself. When was the last time you made a decision that scared you, but you knew it was right? When was the last time you stopped negotiating your worth in rooms you don't even want to be in? These are the moments that define us, the small, invisible acts of self-respect, the quiet decisions that no one applauds but change everything. Sometimes change isn't about doing something drastic. Sometimes it's choosing to show up one day differently than you did the day before. One new choice, one hard no, one honest yes, one boundary honored, one truth spoken. That's how it starts, not with a plan, but with a shift. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, who am I becoming? Because the person you're becoming, that's your compass. So if you want change, stop asking what to do. Start asking who you need to become to do it. That's what most people miss. They try to change their habits without changing their identity. They want different results but keep telling the same story about who they are. But lasting change only happens when you stop identifying with the version of you who created the problem. It's not about willpower, it's about identity. You don't just wake up one day and run a marathon. You become the kind of person who trains, who eats like a runner, sleeps like a runner, thinks like one, and one day, without even realizing it, you are one. That's how change sticks. You stop trying to do different things, and you start being a different version of yourself, and not a better version, not a shinier, more successful version, just a truer one, because who you really are is not the problem. Who you're pretending to be is. If you're tired, burned out, disconnected, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've outgrown your environment, your habits, your patterns, and change is knocking. Not with a grand vision, but with a gentle question. Are you willing to become who you really are? That's it, and let me warn you, it won't always feel good. Sometimes it looks like being misunderstood, walking away, starting over, saying no when you used to say yes, saying yes to something that scares you. But every time you honor what's true instead of what's easy, you change, not overnight, not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency, not intensity, is what builds a new life. Most people wait for clarity before they act. But action is what creates clarity. You don't need the whole plan, you just need the next brave step. That one phone call, that first workout, that apology, that journal entry, that truth shared, that dream finally spoken out loud. Because once you start moving, you stop waiting. And when you stop waiting, you stop being a victim of your life and start being the author of it. That's what this is really about. Ownership. When you take ownership of your life, you stop needing perfect conditions. You stop chasing permission. You stop outsourcing your peace, your power, and your purpose. You stop blaming your past for your future. And you start building a life that feels like yours, not just looks like one. That's change. It's messy, non-linear, often invisible at first, but over time it compounds. Every brave choice adds up. Every time you listen to your gut, even when it's scary. Every time you act with integrity, even when it costs you. Every time you choose alignment over approval, it adds up, and one day you'll look around and realize the change already happened, quietly, slowly, through 1,000 small, courageous moments, and maybe no one will see how hard it was. But you will, and that's enough, because the most meaningful change isn't about proving something. It's about becoming someone, and that someone is already inside you, not waiting to be found, just waiting to be chosen. So ask yourself, right now, in this season of your life, what would it look like to stop delaying who you're meant to become? What would it feel like to live like you were already becoming that person? How would you speak? What would you stop tolerating? What would you finally give yourself permission to want? Change doesn't begin when life gets easier. It begins when you stop negotiating with fear. It begins when you stop abandoning yourself for comfort, for image, for approval. It begins the moment you stop saying one day and start living like this day matters because it does. You don't need a new year. You don't need a breakdown. You don't need someone to save you. You just need a moment of clarity, and maybe this is it. Let it be enough.